better for y'all. We're a couple of above-average idiots offering low-brow commentary on high-brow health and wellness issues.
Griff, what's up, man?
What's up there, big dog?
Nothing much, man. Just glad to be back for another episode of the Beefy Podcast.
Fucking A right. Did you see Poppy Mart popping off this weekend?
I didn't. What the hell is Poppy Mart?
Poppy Mart was the first ever experiential Poppy, the prebiotic soda that started on Shark Tank many moons ago, or not even a couple years ago. They launched a modern take of a Poppy branded convenience store in LA this weekend.
No kidding.
Yep, totally. And lines around the fucking block, dude.
Did they have an EDM dance party like is going on next door right this very second?
Dude, there was Paris Hilton was fucking throwing up hearts and doing that whole thing for sure.
Okay, so a beverage company had a pop-up shop in LA, you said?
Yeah. Well, somewhere in Southern California,
we have to imagine that's where all the pop-up shops start, right? And they should stay. Let's just be clear. LA, Greater Southern California, you can have all the pop-up shops. Okay, why? So like Poppy is this soda beverage. You said it was on Shark Tank. It's obviously got some popularity. It's in grocery stores everywhere. Why did they have a pop-up shop? What was the point there?
That's a great question. They were dropping a new flavor. Obviously, they've got the mind share of a lot of popular people out there in the world. Kylie Jenner, Russell Westbrook, Paris Hilton. There's a lot of people that stand behind this new wave of prebiotic beverages.
Now, are these paid influencers or are these investors? Because I understand that like recently there's become a movement of celebrities investing in products. I hope I don't get this wrong, but I think like Kobe Bryant, for example, was invested in Body Armor. Things like that, right? Are these guys invested?
To my knowledge, they're not. But the whole Shark Tank ecosystem, you get picked up on there. There's a good chance that, you've got this marketing freight train right behind it. So it's a great way to get a lot of eyes on your product really quick. Mm-hmm. And it came at a time when people were beginning to really dig deep into their health. 2019, 2020, people really started to unravel all of the things that they've been putting into their body. And so it seemed like it was ripe for disruption in the $42 billion or however much soda category that's out there. But yeah, so I don't believe that Poppy has any celebrity investors besides the initial shark, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah.
I think what's more interesting is why these beverages have gained so much space on the shelf, why they're moving so many units, and even more, are they relying on shoddy science? Are they lying to consumers about what is actually in that can? Because I have proof that they are.
Oh, yes. I was waiting for that, dude. I was like, something tells me this guy has some information to share.
I think it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors, personally. And it is borderline criminal what they're doing.
Damn.
So
really quick, because I just want to paint the scene here. Obviously, you and I have experience in the kombucha industry. The broader, better for you beverage category. Poppy and sort of its competitor brand, one of its competitor brands, Olipop, came up somewhat adjacent to kombucha in the better for you beverage space. In fact, I remember Poppy used to be named something else. I forget what it was. And they went through a rebrand because the name was super unappealing. It had like something to do with apple cider vinegar.
Oh, dude, when Poppy pitched on Shark Tank, it was Mother Beverage.
That's right.
Yeah. And
it was like drinking vinegar.
Yeah, essentially. They were like making apple cider vinegar cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cool at all at that time. Like
no.
The Shark obviously saw something. They completely rebranded the whole thing. It looks nothing like what was pitched. But yeah, it is adjacent to kombucha in that it it kind of plays on the gut health thing with the prebiotic fiber that's inside of it.
So that's the claim, is there's prebiotics in these beverages.
Yeah, totally.
And what is supposedly the health benefit or claim around prebiotics?
Prebiotics act as fuel for the commensal bacteria that live in your colon.
What is commensal bacteria?
They live with us. They support our physiology.
So the microbiome, as it's kind of popularly known.
Yeah,
okay,
totally.
Gotcha. And so these prebiotics feed the good bacteria that we need and want in our digestive system that help us break down food and stuff like that.
They then make what are called short chain fatty acids, and these things drive a variety. They're kind of like the energy source for a variety of processes within us. Mm-hmm. So when you're taking prebiotics, the idea is, or really when you're consuming fiber, the idea being that you're not taking this fiber as a fuel source for the human body, you're taking it to feed your microbiome.
I see. It's not for you, it's for them. You're doing something good for those little dudes downstairs who are keeping it all churning.
Exactly.
When people think of fiber, I mean, I think for a long time, the popular vision of fiber was like those Metamucil tablets or like a scoop out of the thing that like your grandpa would take to keep him regular. How is it that a beverage company is making fiber popular? How are they fitting fiber, which I think of as like roughage, salad greens, things like that, into a liquid form?
Right. So that's the big question. Fiber, let's look at what fiber is, basically at its molecular core. So it's essentially glucose, sugar, attached to a string of fructose molecules. Okay, another sugar.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of sugar so far.
Totally.
Yeah.
What makes it really cool though is the bonds that attach all those molecules are impervious to our digestive enzymes. So let's take a taproot vegetable. Something like in this case, it's what's called chicory root fiber is one that's in Olipop. Poppy, I believe, is using agave inulin. So in this taproot, you have these cells, and these cells are covered with cellulose and hemicellulose and pectin. And as this broom of material moves through your body, it gets like I said, it's impervious to digestion until it gets into the superhero intestine, down there into the colon.
So it's like it's not breaking down until the very last stage of digestion.
Right, exactly. So it can't be used. It's not used as a carbohydrate source like sugar would be.
To like put sugar, like energy, into your own cells.
Right. So all of the hemicellulose, the cellulose, the pectin, it kind of gets scraped away, we'll say, just for,
And so this is when you eat the whole chicory root or some sort of like powder
fibrous,
of it.
Yeah, some sort of fibrous vegetable, or what you're talking about, Metamucil, that's psyllium husks.
Okay.
Some there's insoluble fibers which are not soluble in water. They cause this gelatinous kind of like a mucousy sort of substrate that serves to kind of act as a broom and work its way through your system.
Now, this is interesting because I've always wondered why fiber appears under total carbohydrates on a nutrition panel. Must be because it is actually comprised of sugars, but they're just not sugars that are fully accessible to the human digestive system. So is that why we subtract fiber from total carbohydrates when you're looking for like your, the sugar content of a food?
Exactly, dude. Exactly. And this is the loophole these beverages are exploiting. So the FDA has in place where on your nutrition panel, you can put the amount of fiber in the original mass of that physical bolus of fiber. So in the case of Olipop and Poppy, they've got either agave or chicory root, and they're putting the mass of fiber that stands originally before any extract. So upon extraction, you release that sweet treat in the middle of that cell, that inulin, which is essentially a carbohydrate storage molecule. So upon extraction, that becomes readily available to the human body to use as a fuel source, just as it would any other sugar.
So let me get this straight. They're basically taking the chocolatey center out of the middle of the Tootsie Pop. The body has no 3 licks to do to get to the middle. There's no time spent or wasted, in this case, getting to that sugar reward, in which we would ordinarily perceive as fiber and use as fiber. You're just going straight to the sugar source.
Right.
So they're basically just putting sugar into a beverage, but calling it fiber.
Yeah, totally. They're kind of stealing the valor of fiber. And I mean, and poppy also has added sugar. We'll just
I didn't know that.
yeah, not to mention that.
Interesting.
So, and this is being borne out. You're seeing a number of people. I mean, you've probably seen these folks that wear a CGM and then eat different food products or drink a different beverage and show you the results. You've seen some of these people.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So there are basically everyone who...
Sorry, really quick. For those that aren't nerds like Griff and somewhat myself, CGM, continuous glucose monitor, measures your blood sugar in real time. They have like apps and stuff. It's crazy. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. So everybody who's consuming these beverages and putting it on display, they are showing a glucose spike after consuming these beverages.
Interesting.
So, which would indicate obviously that there's, fuel source for the human body.
Yeah. There's sugar present there for you to consume.
Which, whatever. I think if the goal is only if the goal is let's help people cut back on consuming Coca-Cola, and if that was their only stated goal, then I think I'd just say whatever and move on, and we'd go on to the next thing. And by and large, I think Poppy is not really leaning too hard into the nutrition side of it. They're more fun lifestyle brand kind of thing. But Olipop is definitely exploiting the purported benefits of fiber and, plant-based lifestyle from this beverage. So Olipop, interestingly, as it pertains to us, the founders of that company, before they started Olipop, they actually had a kombucha company. They
really?
went out of business. Yeah.
Oh.
So they were
2-time grifters, are they? No, I mean, no disrespect. I'm sure they're great people, but this is interesting because this ties directly into something that's really nagging at me right now, which is I want to know what's behind. It's unfortunate that there are these categories that spring up, like kombucha, which we have direct experience in, as we stated before, that become so popular because consumers are looking for this magic bullet to fix whatever it is that's wrong in their diet or their life. In that case, it was probiotics, right? And then the industry booms around the health benefits of probiotics, and then the studies bear out the reality of that situation, which is, well, probiotics aren't a one-size-fits-all magic bullet for everything. In fact, in some cases, they can actually be detrimental to your gut health. They can produce overabundance of certain bacterial strains that cause your microbiome to go out of whack. Obviously, this craze around prebiotics. Prebiotics are good for you, but then trying to shoehorn them into this very hyper palatable vessel, this delivery mechanism in the form of this beverage, has bastardized it sort of, and now people are consuming something that is kind of, in a sense, maybe not overtly not good for them, but at very least not fulfilling the advertised health benefit or claim that they might be attaching to it mentally. So 2 sides of this question that I'd maybe like you to address, if you would. Why is it that all the better for you categories tend to, one by one, fall prey to advertising something that appears to ultimately not become the case? And what is it with the American consumer, perhaps, that draws us into these magic bullet fixes for our diet?
The answer to the first one is, with biology and with many other things in life, for every gimme, there's a gotcha. There's no free lunch. There's a reason these cliches exist. You can't just you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Okay, you can stop at 3. That's plenty.
Yeah. Okay. So we as humans we've been kind of misled into believing that, health can originate from a can or a factory. We're told we're very, we're under the influence by, various media outlets, various influencers. We see somebody who we look up to, who, paid or not, is fit, rich, has great skin. They must poop at the same time every day, and it's always very consistent.
It's also beautiful, fit, wealthy.
Yeah. We see this, and by and large, a lot of us have, we want that quick fix. It's much easier to do that. And that's not to say that there aren't benefits to these things also. Over the last, I guess it was 10 years ago when we kind of had a good grip on the, sequencing the human microbiome. And since then, that's when you've really started to see the gut health conversation take off. And so as people began to, people spent years, and consumers spent tens of thousands of dollars on probiotics, only to find out that they weren't the magic bullet that we thought they were, but they must still have some benefit. There must still be something good, because we're still understanding that, there's the origins of our dopaminergic system, has something to do with our microbiome. We see negative impacts in our microbiome from certain disease processes. So if we're seeing, a depleted microbiome or unhealthy microbiome in disease, then a healthy microbiome must mean, a healthy organism, a healthy human. So we're still looking for how we can figure out how to strengthen the bugs that maybe are still down there, just maybe not as viable as they once were. Maybe ways that we can build back the populations, the colonies that we started with, and that's where prebiotics came into fashion. Now we're looking at this whole. What we need to realize is this is like an ecosystem, and these are all kind of communication molecules that our bacteria use, and all the organisms use to signal to one another to do certain things. So now we're kind of focused on this idea of postbiotics, right? It's prebiotics feed the probiotics, and the probiotics make postbiotics. And that's a very simplified explanation of that whole system. And it doesn't exactly work like that. But that's, this all goes to show that we have very little perfect knowledge on what these interventions can or can't do for us. And what we do, there is some research showing that in a dysbiotic gut, which most people are experiencing at any given time, that the consumption of these fiber extracts, which are rapidly fermentable when they get into your body, especially when they get down to the colon, those things they ferment really quickly. Whereas, the actual bolus of soluble or insoluble fibers that we consume in the form of like vegetables, those take time to degrade. When we have that rapidly fermentable fiber extract hit the colon in a dysbiotic system, which, is generally caused by the Western diet, we actually are starting to see this in mouse models given, this is not, this hasn't been borne out in humans yet, but in mouse models, we're seeing liver cancer from these rapidly fermentable fiber extracts. So,
and why Why liver cancer specifically? Is there any indication as to that? What's the mechanism there?
So there's, the liver, the liver processes excess glucose into glycogen, where it stores glycogen for, where you it's like a reserve for, energy for energy for your cells around the body.
Sure.
So, when we have excess carbohydrate consumption, as in the Western diet, then that winds up becoming, those carbohydrates wind up, turning into fat instead. And that's the energy source. There's another mechanism called, I think the actual cancer that it causes is called hepatic steatosis. So I don't know the exact medical, pathology here, but
the liver directly deals with the conversion of sugar or storage of sugar into either energy or fat. And so something about the fermentation of these soluble fibers is putting the liver under a tremendous amount of strain or dysfunction in some way, that's in mouse models, at least at this point, pointing to a prevalence of potential, cancerous outcomes.
Potentially.
Interesting.
So again, like if this were just about capturing a little bit of, or helping people wean themselves off of soda, which I think it is doing. I think it's making a dent, but it's a very small dent.
Yeah.
Again, that the soda industry is like 42 billion. And I think between Poppy and Olipop and all of the prebiotic sodas, it's like $1 billion category right now. So
they're making a dent, but
yeah, they're making a dent. But the problem is Olipop has been very vocal about a clinical trial that they supported. And, this clinical trial is used in PR placements. There's a big Forbes article about Olipop. I see a lot of the write-ups that you see about Olipop, or at least that you did see while they were growing, touted the benefits based on this clinical study that they performed. Kudos to them for actually doing that, because it's by and large way more than any other food and beverage brand ever does, especially a small one. It's not a very easy paper to find. I scoured PubMed, Web of Science, couldn't find it. Everybody that's on their scientific board, I referenced all of their names, couldn't find this paper. Finally, I saw somebody talking about the paper on LinkedIn, and I kind of chirped, I was like, has anybody actually ever seen this study or read this paper? And wouldn't you know it, a grad student who did some analyses on it sent me the paper.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I read through it, dug into it, and essentially there was 4 subjects. It was 4 subjects who, 2 of which saw a increase in butyrate production and bifidobacteria populations.
So those are good things.
Yeah, ostensibly.
Okay.
2 saw a difference from baseline. 2 were unremarkable. Whether or not that difference seen from baseline has any clinical relevance, there's so much that we don't know about what goes on with our microbiome and its metabolites and how they are used for downstream signaling. We have a good idea, but there's a lot of crosstalk. They do a lot of things. They do a lot of things differently in different bodies with different organisms. We're talking about just a diverse array of species producing a variety of metabolites in all kinds of different ecosystems. Disease states, healthy states, you name it. So
too many variables to draw any like real conclusions.
Yeah, a lot of variables for them to unequivocally say the clinical trial they've supported supports their take that this is actually good for you.
Yeah. Well, so, just a question on the population. 4 people in a study, like how robust is that as a population within this sort of field of study or this type of study?
Yeah, I mean, probably pretty low power on that. I
So
mean,
typically you'd
again,
want to see more people studied, so you had a greater representation of the outcomes across more people.
You'd sure love to if you were being so vocal about if that was your main evidentiary driver, of utility for this beverage, then yeah, you would need a much more robust sample set there. Now, you know how I feel. I mean, I still like anecdotal evidence.
Sure.
I still think there's some value there. I still believe that there's that Olipop has done, at this point, probably more good than harm.
Sure. At its initial goal of maybe trying to pull some people away from soda because of just the abundance of sugar and the impact that an overconsumption of sugar can have on the human body. So
Right.
That's good. I know that Olipop has stevia in it. Do you know, does Poppy have a non-nutritive sweetener like that in it?
Also stevia. And sugar.
Okay.
And the big thing to wonder is if you're getting all of your fiber from a soda, like, it'd be wise to take a closer look at your diet.
Yeah. Well, I think that really strikes to the second question that I asked you, which is like, what is it about American culture that causes people to want this magic bullet? I mean, I think that Americans are constantly seeking the path of least resistance to the outcome that they want, which isn't inherently on its face a bad thing, perhaps. Can motivate really creative and clever solutions. And, maybe a soda that has some of these compounds in it that gets them to drink a little less sugar, like, is a facet of that approach that could work. But it's like, you can't get all the fiber in your diet that you need from a liquid, right?
No. I mean, it's recommended, right? The dietary guide, like the recommendations for macronutrients, really antiquated. I think it was based on like 20 college kids in New York, like 50, 60 years ago or something.
What?
Yeah, I'm not.
Well, we just got some new dietary guidelines. Did we dig into what the updates were?
We haven't gotten all the guidelines, and right now they're mainly focused on health equity. They're making sure that they address all of the cultural and ethnic barriers to adoption of whatever guidelines they put out there.
Interesting.
So that's where the big focus is right now.
What does that look like?
Well, specifically, they are looking. I know that they have. There's a Native American woman on the committee, and so she is looking at health disparities in Native American populations and how how the indigenous diet can be adapted to whatever guidelines are put out there, because here's the thing, it's like we have like culturally appropriate foods or whatever that
Sure.
Cultures have consumed for millennia, and those have gotten adapted in the modern world to where they still kind of like eat these culturally appropriate diets, but just with shittier ingredients.
It's like they still resemble what they were, but they're like, shadows of their former benefit or what have you. That's interesting. I mean, and I think that's seems relevant, like, and reasonable to me, that you should consider, like, maybe dietary guidelines for like just an entire country of incredibly diverse people. Like, let's just boil it all the way down. 350 plus million individuals who all have extremely unique individual dietary needs, maybe shouldn't be a thing. Like, maybe we shouldn't be subjecting all of those diverse individuals to one set of guidelines. In fact, maybe people should be a little more curious about what their own unique needs are and serving their own unique, dietary, purpose or what have you.
I worry that it's going to be used as a crutch for people to continue to eat like shit. Personally, because go to like, and this is, I've go to an ethnic market. There's still plenty, a lot of processed garbage.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and like most of the a lot of ethnic markets don't have don't have like great fresh produce or whatever. Mexican markets tend to have like, what appears, a lot of markets will have a really interesting and deep selection of meats and, various offal and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whether or not these are, regeneratively raised animals or any of that, like is up for question, and the importance of that is a whole different conversation. But I find that by and large, when you pop into an ethnic market, you're buying ultra processed foods.
Well, I think that there's two ways to look at this sort of like culturally appropriate food conversation. It's like contemporarily culturally appropriate, right? Like modern day foods, many of which, I mean, you could find junk food in any culturally appropriate category now, versus like sort of more of an ancestrally culturally appropriate diet, right? Which is probably the spirit of that, right? Like, what would an indigenous individual have eaten 100 years ago? Well, maybe you should look at that and what made those societies and cultures healthy versus, well, why do we see such an obesity epidemic within indigenous populations now? I don't know. Isn't it true they don't process sugar the same way or as well? Alcohol has a much more, profound impact on those individuals. So like there are components of the contemporary diet that have proven to be really deleterious to that population. So perhaps, the evolution of a diet within a culture over time should be more considered than, say, what the contemporary alternatives to like a Western diet would be, because they're all you can find junk food in any one of those cultural diets today.
Yeah. I worry that this is, well, it's evidentiary of just a standard, modern day government boondoggle, hey, like at its core, we all have like pretty similar requirements
for sure.
So like, and our current guidelines aren't even coming close to satisfying that.
Yeah.
So like, let's like more focus on, I mean, right now, like it's still recommended that you can have up to like 20 grams of sugar a day or something like that. Like it's not essential for life.
You know what?
And so again, like that's just one, that's one little piece of it. We're failing. Our guidelines are failing humans, and it's happening around the world.
Totally.
So like maybe instead of bringing the, DEI police into the fucking guidelines, we just focus on like making our people stronger, healthier, fitter, happier.
I think that's all well and good. Yeah. But I, for one, would really love an ethnic food guideline. Being of Irish descent, I would love to see a food pyramid that's meat, potatoes, maybe some root vegetables, but primarily Guinness right in the middle, as a primary food group. I think that'd be pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, they did. It's funny you bring up alcohol, because they were discussing how they were going to incorporate alcohol.
No way.
I think they ultimately decided to kind of table that.
Yeah, I hope they did.
Yeah.
Geez, that's just wild.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I think, another big aspect of why these better for you sodas are coming about and why we're talking about fiber so much is because of the popularity of plant-based diets. Or at least it has some, I mean, there's something there, that typically is one of the hard driving arguments against the carnivore diet, is that we're not going to be, those individuals who are doing keto or whatever aren't getting the fiber that they need. and you'll get various camps debating the benefits of fiber, or if there are any. I personally believe they are. I find that fiber keeps my bowels very consistent. The research shows that consuming fiber, especially if you're consuming a diet very rich in animal foods, that fiber helps kind of divert some of that TMAO production that we had talked about before, which is this molecule that's it's like a nitrous amine that's generated from the fermentation of meat, and it's associated with some colorectal cancers in some studies. Now, again, a lot of other things go into, are we talking about processed meats with nitrates and, and all the deleterious effects that are associated with the standard American shit meat? Or are we talking about high quality, just straight up good beef? But anyway, the fiber helps kind of divert some of that initial fermentation to more benign molecules in that TMAO. At least that's what some of the research says. I incorporate a little bit of fiber in my diet. That's neither here nor there. I think, again, why this conversation is bubbling up is out of this plant-based propaganda that we're seeing so much.